Hey guys, welcome back to my channel today. I got a number of requests, thank you so much, to do a review of the new HourGlass Vanish Seamless Finish Foundation. You cannot say that quickly. Typically, I am not a fan of stick foundations because I don't feel like they work for my skin type in particular. However, I do feel like this particular foundation is good for a variety of skin types and a variety of people, which makes me very excited, finally. I do a lot of reviews here on my channel of higher priced items, not because I generally or typically prefer the higher priced item, but I'm really curious and interested in verifying whether or not spending that money is worth it. I am definitely on a budget, as am always, and I want to make sure that before I buy something, it's actually going to be worth the investment, because let me just say, some of our pieces are definitely an investment. So if you want to find out what my thoughts are on the new HourGlass Stick Foundation, then just keep watching. So this bad boy is $46. 46 bucks for 1/4 of an ounce. It is smaller than some of the other stick foundations, more pricey than some of the other stick foundations. But I will say this, the coverage of this foundation is definitely more of a full coverage foundation. So if that's not what you're looking for, then you definitely don't want to spend the money on this. But by being a full coverage foundation, you are able to use less. Also, because it comes in stick form, you have the potential to waste or lose a lot less than you would normally if it were to come in a bottle. So for example, sometimes a lot of the liquid product will get sucked up in our brushes or stuck to our hand because that's where we apply the foundation first before applying it to our face. In this case, you have literally like no waste. Anything that you buy will literally be able to go on your face. So I just said that this is definitely a full coverage stick foundation in comparison to the Makeup Forever HD, Ultra HD stick foundation. This one definitely gives you more coverage. I also find that the one by Makeup Forever is a little bit more greasy. That's not a very good word either. Greasy and moist. Both of them are just no good. In comparison to the new foundation stick released by Anastasia, the one by Anastasia is definitely less coverage and is actually a little bit harder to blend in, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. But overall, this one's a lot of money, but because of the full coverage, you get to use a lot less. I want to add about this full coverage foundation that it almost feels like you're not actually wearing foundation. Now, I don't really think there's any full coverage foundation out there that you don't at least get a sense that you are wearing. I mean, unless you are wearing something that is very light coverage, you can actually walk around and say, I don't even feel like I'm wearing any makeup. I think if you've got a full coverage foundation on by nature, you're going to sense its presence. But I do want to say that this one is very comfortable and it is not heavy in a way where you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm wearing so much makeup on my face. It reminds me, in fact, of the Urban Decay All Nighter foundation, because this one by comparison is also more of a full coverage foundation that is very comfortable and less aware to wear. You are less aware when you wear both of these. In my intro, I stated that I find that this foundation might actually be good for a variety of skin types, and that's because I have typically oily to kind of combination skin, and I find that this does not make me feel greasy by the end of the day in the way that some of the other stick foundations do. I find that there is something of a mattifying element to it because I am not as full-on oily and shiny as I would have expected at the end of the day. However, it does kind of give me this then sort of dewy look all day while still keeping my oil production in control. So ironically, I want to compare it then to the drugstore foundation by Maybelline, the Dream Velvet Soft Matte Hydrating Foundation. So it's mattifying but hydrating at the same time. So in this case, it's mattifying but gives me a little bit of a dewy finish all at the same time. But that's if you've got oily skin. If you happen to have dry skin, the reason I think this might work out well for you is because in trying to treat my oily skin and my acne, it is very common that I have some dry patches. And that's a constant battle when I'm choosing and wearing a foundation, is trying to balance the oiliness with the dry patches. I find that this HourGlass foundation does not stick to my dry patches, which is like the perfect combination. So that's why I kind of feel like, and if you've just got your run-of-the-mill dry skin, or if you've got oily skin, I find that this stick foundation winds up working really well for both of you guys. I will say this, because it is not a foundation specifically meant for oily skin, I do wind up using a mattifying primer. I like the one by Becca to mattify my skin underneath the foundation. It's the Ever Matte Poreless Priming Perfector. I also find that I do need to set it with a setting powder, which will aid in the mattification. One of my favorites is by Youngblood. It's the Mineral Rice Setting Powder. Or if you want some drugstore variety to go high end, low end with your $46 foundation, you can get a $5 setting powder, the one by Rimmel, the Stay Matte setting powder. When it comes to application, I find that because it is a stick foundation, you are most going to like using a denser sort of blending brush. And so the one that I'm going to use in the demo is by Sigma. It is the round-headed kabuki brush, the F82. You could also use by Morphe, one that I've talked about before, the M439. You want a brush that is very dense because you need to move around a foundation that does not pour out of a bottle. By the way, I just want to say that when I'm using a stick foundation, I love that you wind up applying it like war paint. By the way, since I initially filmed this demo, I find that I actually can use a little bit less streakiness when I am applying it, because I really have found that this foundation spreads very, very nicely and very, very evenly and very easily as well. It doesn't wind up giving me any resistance, even though it was born in a stick form. I find that when you're using a stick foundation, you are typically applying it to your face and sort of dragging it down. This isn't necessarily a dainty buffing sort of motion that you're going to use when you're applying a stick foundation. So I apply it at strategic locations so that I can then spread it around in the areas where I want the coverage to go. So even though I used a word like dragging your makeup down and spreading it out, let me just say it does not pull on your skin at all. I was finding that with the Anastasia stick foundation, that in its application, it just wasn't smooth enough. It wasn't creamy enough, which is good in its own regard, but when it comes to trying to get it to spread out, it required much more work than I find the one by HourGlass gives me. And so finally, the benefit of a stick packaging. By the way, first of all, this is beautiful. It's made in their very reflective, although fingerprint grabbing finish that many of their compacts come in. It still is very pretty. This makes it great for travel. You don't have to worry about foundation spilling out all over the place, contaminating other things. It is very quick to apply because of that. I already talked about how a stick foundation won't creep down into a brush when you're trying to apply it. I love how a stick allows you to have such precise application just in general, but then because this particular stick is shaped like a triangle, you can kind of get into the contours of your face that you need to. Finally, I wish I liked stick foundations even more because I think that their application is just plain old easier. I mean, I suppose I could come up with an individual and specific list of why I just think it's easier, but I just want to say that my gut just tells me it's just so easy. Like, I'm literally like breezing through this step in my makeup process. Value this as an investment. And yes, that is exactly what it would be. It would be an investment. I don't wear it every day. I don't use it every day. I am wearing it today, of course, because I was filming this video, but as much as I enjoy the easy application, I am not wearing it every day because it is a lot of money. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't. I'm posting some 2-minute talks randomly throughout the week. You'll be notified when those go up. What are your thoughts on the new HourGlass foundation? I would love to know. What are some products that you'd be interested in having me review as well? I'm so happy to do that. Please let me know what you'd like to see. I am on social media. Please check me out in some other locations. It's Gina Creone everywhere. So I look forward to seeing you guys in my next video. Hope you have a really good rest of the day. In the meantime, thanks.
And of course, let me try that again. The Ever Matte Poreless Priming I like the one by Becca, the Ever Matte Poreless Priming Perfector. I find that, oh my gosh, it's like a tongue twister initiator with the pa. Take it down a notch. And so that is very what? I can't even finish the sentence. I don't even know. To do a review on the new HourGlass Vanish Seamless Foundation Stick. Did I mix up those words? Is it the Vanish Seamless or the Seamless Vanish? I should probably have that all figured out before I hit the record button. To do a review on the new stick foundation by HourGlass, the Vanish Seamless Finish Foundation Stick. That's a lot of cinch in there. So those are my thoughts on the new HourGlass Vanish Seamless Foundation. I'm still not even sure if I got those words in the right order.